Hi readers! So before we start the show, I have a quick ask. Will you pretty please rate and review the show if you like it? I mean, if you don't like it, well, that's your choice. But if you do like it, rating and reviewing helps other people find the show. So if you take a few seconds and hit those 5 stars, that helps. And if you take a minute to write something nice about the show, that will help even more. So thank you in advance. And alrighty, now on to the episode. Welcome to the Reader's Couch, a podcast that brings you lively conversations with some of your favourite authors and bookish personalities. Over here, the couch is always booked, but I've moved some books to the side table and fluffed some cushions so I can welcome a guest or two to come lounge with us. Today on the couch, we have Natasha Brown, an author who has spent a decade working in financial services. But she's here to talk to me about her debut novel about a young Black British woman who, while preparing to attend a lavish party, carefully considers the assembled pieces of her life and whether it's time to take it all apart. Stay tuned. For historical fiction readers looking to add some sleuthing to your reading list, you need to add Murder at Malone Hall by Colleen Cambridge to your TBR. Set among the rolling hills of Devon, England, we're introduced to Fidelia Bright, the fictional housekeeper for none other than famed mystery novelist Agatha Christie. As efficient as she is personable, Fidelia is both loyal to and protective of the crime writer, who is as much her friend as she is her employer. And though accustomed to murder and its methods as frequent topics of conversation, Fidelia is unprepared for the sight of a very real, very dead body on the library floor that's found during a house party at Malone Hall. This mystery baffles even her famous employer, and now it's up to head of household Fidelia Bright to investigate. Murder at Malone Hall by Colleen Cambridge is the first in a new series forthcoming from Kensington Books, and copies go on sale on Tuesday, October 26th. So get those last-minute orders in, make request at your local library, because this is an exciting new historical mystery and the start of a new series that you really don't want to miss. A literary novel about a mother's unconditional love for her unusual child and how it drastically changes her life is explored in Chouette by Claire Oshetsky. In the novel, we meet Tiny, an accomplished cellist who discovers she's pregnant. Her husband is delighted, but Tiny warns him that the baby is not his. She's been impregnated by her owl lover, and that the baby inside her will most certainly be an owl baby. When Chouette is born, she is indeed strange, but Tiny's loving commitment to her is unwavering. Even in those moments when Chouette's behavior grows violent and strange, Tiny encourages Chouette to be her true, authentic self. So when Tiny discovers that her husband is on an obsessive and dangerous quest to find a cure for their daughter, Tiny must decide whether Chouette should be raised to fit in or to be herself, and she learns what it truly means to be a mother. Chouette by Claire Oshetsky is being published by Eco, and books go on sale on Tuesday, November 16th. So get those pre-orders in, request it at your local library. This is an exhilarating, provocative novel you really don't want to miss. Hi readers, welcome again to the Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me is a woman who spent a decade working in financial services after studying math at Cambridge University. But she's here to talk with me about her debut novel, Assembly. Please welcome to the couch, Natasha Brown. Hey, Natasha.
Hey, Victoria, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy you're here on the show with me. I'm really excited about Assembly. And now it's available in America. So it's not just folks in the UK and Europe. Now it's here in the States. I mean, how are you feeling? How excited are you?
It's so excited. It's just been so much fun the last couple of months getting to share it. You work on a book in secret for so long, sort of, and to share it with so many people and the discussions that have come out of it, it's just been great. So I'm really excited to start talking to folks across the pond.
Yes, you have a whole new set of readers here. But I want folks to hear it straight from you. Tell us about your novel Assembly and what can folks expect going in?
Sure. So it spans just a couple of days, late summer days in 2019. And our narrator, we meet her right as she gets a huge promotion. She works in the City of London in finance. And then we travel with her out into the English countryside to attend this sort of grand garden party at one of those old English country estates.
And she starts to kind of reckon with her life and wonder, is it time to take her carefully assembled life together, take it apart or just kind of keep it together? I mean, I found that whole thing super interesting, but also, and I wasn't expecting this, was to kind of see her, I don't want to say forced. I mean, you're going to have to tell me, but it kind of felt like this reckoning. I mean, the dinner party was one thing, but also she was diagnosed with an illness. And I'm not going to say it here. And to be fair, it wasn't really clear in the novel right away. Eventually, you know what it is. But just the fact that, she had these different things going on. I mean, first she had a promotion at work. She has this diagnosis. She has the party she's going to, which is her boyfriend's parents, their wedding anniversary.
A little bit convoluted.
Right. But all these things happening. Why now? Why is she taking the time now, I guess, to really reflect?
Sure. So I think one thing I knew sort of going into this was I wanted to tell a bit of an older millennial story. So she's a millennial, but she's around 30 and she sort of had the kind of coming of age phase in her life. She's sort of done the hard initial stages of her career. She's got to something of a plateau. And I think she's at that point where her and her partner, they're thinking about taking their relationship to the next stage. It just feels as though, I suppose, proper adulthood is on the horizon. So there's the general kind of story of burnout and adjusting to a new phase of life. But I really wanted to look at the intersection of the other things that are going on for her. And you mentioned this illness. One thing that was really in my mind, and one of the things that sort of went into me writing this, was the idea of weathering, which is a hypothesis, the weathering hypothesis, to explain the worst health outcomes that Black women have in the US and the UK for sort of across all health issues, really. And we've seen it with the coronavirus too, sadly. And I wanted to say, okay, well, if this woman, despite sort of doing so well on paper, is still facing this health disparity, what does that sort of provoke in her life? And how would she reassess sort of the way she's thought about what the arc of her life will be as a result?
Right. I couldn't help but notice just the different contrast, and I felt like, wow, she just has so much going on. And it was so funny because you packed all this into such a tiny novel. One thing, though, is I didn't feel like we got to know our narrator. I felt like she was someone I met in passing. Was this something you intended to do from the start?
Absolutely. I think one thing that was key to me was this idea of Black subjectivity. I didn't want us to look at the narrator and sort of watch her suffering. I wanted to pull the reader into her confidence and to look out at the world from her perspective, really center that in the narrative and see what does it take for her to become, from the beginning, she's sort of a passive participant in this story. By the end, she's directing the narration and is truly sort of taken on the role of the narrator. So I wanted to kind of keep her quite empty. so we're looking outwards. One of the big influences with my approach was Bell Hooks. She's got an essay, Postmodern Blackness, where she talks about this marrying of pop culture and critical theory to make sort of these Black cultural products which can be commercially successful, but can also kind of grapple with some big questions and big ideas. And one thing she said that really resonated was when we equate Blackness with, some sort of concrete gut level experience, what we're really doing is dehumanizing people, because people aren't just the physical experiences that happen to them. They think and they question as well.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So your background is in financial services. You study math at Cambridge. I mean, how did you get here being a writer? Was this something you always wanted to do?
Not at all, actually. I've always been a reader, and I've loved reading since childhood. And my parents have always encouraged me to read, and my grandparents too. So it's always been a big part of my life. And even while I was studying maths and working in a totally different sort of sphere, weekends, evenings reading would definitely be an enjoyable activity for me. In terms of taking the step over to writing, it was just a result, I think, of a lot of the nonfiction reading I'd been doing over the past few years. I got really interested in this question of language neutrality and whether or not the language we use can ever be neutral, and how that lack of neutrality is sometimes weaponized or used to effect. And so I was reading and researching lots around this. And in the end, I had all of these ideas. And it seemed to me the best way to share them was to try and write a story that brought them to life. So I took a writing class, and it sort of grew out of that.
Wow, that's amazing. But I'm happy to hear it because I'm a huge fan of this book. And I really want to know, what inspired you to now tell this story? Because you've hit on so many subjects. And the funny thing, again, it's such a small novel. It's a short novel. I think sometimes it's good to have a short novel. We don't need tomes the whole time. But I mean, you tackled capitalism, colonialism, slavery, microaggressions, macroaggressions, just so many different experiences this unnamed Black woman is experiencing. I mean, what inspired you to tell this story?
Well, one thing I knew that I wanted to do once the narrator sort of started to take shape for me and take form, I really wanted to accurately represent everything that would intersect in her life over this, it's just over a day really. And there's, the term in feminist theory, intersectionality. So all of these different things that we bring to the table as a person, it affects how we interact with the world and how various, assumptions interact with us. And I wanted to take all of those and sort of accurately reflect how those would impress upon her, to give that experience to the reader. At the same time, knowing that I was trying to be so honest and to pull in so much of it meant that I knew it couldn't go on for too long, because I felt if we spent 300 pages with her, it might get a bit much. So I wanted to kind of keep it short enough that it's light and really focus on the narrator's voice, that she could bring us through and was a guide that we sort of trusted on this journey. But I wanted to be honest to what a woman in her circumstances would interact with and have to consider just as a part of her day to day.
Did any of your personal experiences, because you worked in finance, or main narrator is in the banking industry too, did any of your experiences inspire her story or her background?
I think it's such an interesting question. I mean, certainly her background, and particularly why I chose to give her that career, was because I needed a reason for why she would then suddenly be in these elite spaces within the plot. So it made sense from a plot perspective. The other thing I kind of faced when I was, submitting this manuscript and working on it was you'd meet people who work in the publishing industry who'd never met anyone like the narrator and didn't really believe that there were, Black women working in finance. That I've had a journalist say to me, it's very unlikely for a Black woman to own a home. And these are things that people genuinely believe just because they don't know women like the narrator. So in another sense, I knew it was important that there was some overlap between the broad circumstances of my life and the narrator's life, just to answer that believability question, because I did get a lot of pushback on that in the beginning.
Wow, that's real interesting to hear, because we do exist out here.
Exactly. I think it's one of those things, So maybe people exist in these small social circles because sometimes you meet someone who they know a ton of people just like the narrator. For me, she's a fairly commonplace type of woman. But if the folks who are the gatekeepers in the creative industries just aren't exposed to these sorts of women, we won't see their stories.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I'm happy, Assembly made the light of day. For our listeners, you have no idea. I was fangirling with Natasha before we got on here because I didn't want to be too embarrassing. But no, it was so brilliant. I'm so happy you did it, and I'm happy it saw the light of day, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So normally on the podcast, I really try to add some levity to the show and play a game. It was super hard devising one because we really didn't get to know our narrator very well. I felt, again, like I said earlier, she was just a woman I met in passing. But as a Black woman of Jamaican descent who super related to this novel, especially this one part, it inspired the game. So the part of the book that inspired the game was this section. It's on page 51, where our narrator says, "I only know Jamaica from stories. Visiting aunts and uncles, cousins, family, unwrapping wedges of breadfruit, Julie mangoes, fruit cake, a rich buttery pear sliced open, spread onto hard dough bread, stories about family, sitting out on a veranda into the night, all together, telling each other stories, a promise of a welcome, warm, loving family, always retreating, they all fly back. I stay here, their English cousin." That hit me personally, but it also is inspiring my game because the name of this game is What to Do in Jamaica. So it's inspired by the fact that, she remained in the UK watching all her cousins fly back. So we are taking our unnamed narrator to Jamaica, and I'm going to list some things to do there. And you're going to let me know either or what would our narrator prefer to do. So are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to start with some Jamaican experiences. This is a basic tourist trail, you guys, so you can Google it too. Would our narrator prefer to go rafting on the Martha Brae River or go to Duns River Falls?
Go to Duns River Falls and not raft? Just look.
Okay. Would she prefer to go to Treasure Beach? So this is on the south part of the island. It has black sand. Or does she want to stay on the north coast in Negril and go to 7 Mile Beach?
I think see the black sand.
I love the black sands. Would she prefer to go to Devon House? Or would she prefer to go to Rose Hall Great House?
Can you tell me a bit about them?
Okay, so Devon House is a mansion. It's in Kingston. I think it's Georgian architecture, if my memory serves me right. But I think it was the first Black millionaire, not billionaire. I think it was the first Black millionaire, but it's a beautiful house. It's in Kingston, but then Rose Hall Great House is a haunted old plantation home in Montego Bay. And there are rumors that, I think her name was Annie, who was the plantation owner's wife, haunts the place still because she used to torture her slaves, which was real horrible, but it's open for an attraction. So either we go to Devon House to go see the rich man's house, or we go to the old plantation house in Rose Hall.
I think Devon House, she has a taste for Georgian architecture, so I think she would enjoy that.
Oh, yes, that's true. I remember her renovating her place or making conversation about it. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. So now we're going to go to some food. Would she prefer, right, because I don't think this was mentioned, would she prefer to have some ackee and codfish, which is really saltfish on the island, but I'm saying codfish for my American friends, ackee and codfish, or would she prefer some jerk chicken or pork or jerk fish?
Ooh, okay, I'm going to answer this one as me because I'm vegetarian now, but one thing I miss is ackee and saltfish. So I'll pick that. Okay, you're vegetarian, but I'm still going to ask what would she prefer because this is... About her, true. I think she might I think she might go for the jerk, to be honest. I think
She'd go for the
spicy is
jerk.
probably more her thing.
Okay. And what about some oxtail or curry goat? Because, those two are staples.
Curry goat.
Okay. Would she go for some escovitch fish or some brown stew chicken?
Is she going to be in the place where the fish is cooked?
Yes, she's going to be in the place where the fish is cooked, right there.
The chicken, the brown chicken.
Okay. All right. So these are some of my favorite side dishes. Oh my gosh, I'm showing myself here. Would she prefer some like fried plantains on the side, or would she prefer like some festival?
Ooh, I don't think she has much of a sweet tooth, so I'd go for the plantain.
Okay. And two starches. Would she prefer some breadfruit, although that was mentioned in the book, or some bammy?
Ooh, okay. They're both good, but I think like the fresh breadfruit would be irresistible.
It really is. I remember like getting some fresh breadfruit, just having that fresh out the, I was going to say oven, but not oven, the fire outside. I used to get that. And then we'll package it, bring it back, and then we would reheat it. But after a few days, you have to fry it because that's the next best thing. Okay.
I remember the first, oh, sorry.
No, go on.
And I was just going to say, I remember the first time I had fresh breadfruit and cooked in the fire, as you say, compared to having it when someone's brought it back for you. And it was a world of difference. So good.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. It's a world of difference. So the last thing I'm going to ask now, would she prefer some Jamaican patties and she can have any patty she wants, or would she prefer Stamp and Go, which is really saltfish fritters, but Stamp and Go is the fancy name nowadays?
Oh, right. I've not heard of Stamp and Go. Probably, who can say no to patties? I think she'd go for patties.
Yeah, I'd go for patties too. Well, thank you for playing my game.
That game was great, except now I'm very hungry. So.
Hungry. I did it to myself too. Oh, crazy lady. Anywho, so Natasha, I really want to get into your writing life. The style you chose for this novel, well, first things first, the structure was very unusual. I think it was very daring, but it worked for me. It also had this stream of conscious style, or narrator was just going on and on and on. I mean, in a good way. Was this something you were intending to do as well?
Yeah, so I think I knew sort of a couple of things with kind of the stream of conscious or the voice. I knew it was so crucial that the narrator, because she's such a passive character, we never really see her do anything. The characters decide what they're going to do. She kind of goes along with it. It's never even really clear that she speaks. So I knew it was so important that her internal voice and the one that we were reading as readers was enough to carry this story and to carry this passive character, and was actually showing that she was an active character and had agency just in the narration, not in her actions. So it was so key to me to kind of get this immediacy. That's why I set it in the present tense, first person. So it really feels like she's talking to you, almost like a monologue, and you're along with her. And then with the broader structure, I just knew that I wanted to borrow from everything. You know, as a reader, I was reading fiction, nonfiction, poetry. I wanted to just borrow from every form and try and find the best way of telling a particular scene, a particular part of the story, and bringing it all together to try and achieve this condensed effect. Because going back to the fact that I knew I didn't want it to go on for too long, I had to figure out, okay, well, how can I just boil it down to what's absolutely essential? And it seemed to me that by borrowing from other forms and being a bit flexible with that line of what's a novel and what's a different form, it enabled me to kind of pack more in.
I agree, because, and it kind of, how sometimes when you're reading a novel, sometimes things get lost a bit. And then you have to come back around. With this, it was just very direct. I mean, even, just mentioning when you were given examples of like microaggressions and macro, some were really macro for me, that she was experiencing, figure 1, figure 2, figure 3. I loved it. It just, for me, it just hit these points hard and straight, and it was just very direct. So I was grateful for those bits as well, and just the paragraphs and just everything. It just, I know for some it might seem a bit deconstructed, but it just worked. So I was grateful for those points just being easily highlighted, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you. Yeah, because I know it could be a bit polarizing, particularly with those figures that you mentioned, but I really loved just the idea of taking these scenes and just looking at them sort of out of context, just in sort of clear, simplistic language, what's going on. And I think my thinking around that was really influenced by Claudia Rankine and Don't Let Me Be Lonely and Citizen, because I think she just uses that style of writing and that style of voice so effectively. And I really wanted to try and do that, defamiliarize the scene and just kind of put it on display by itself.
Right, right. Okay, awesome. So what was your writing process like for Assembly? Like, how long did it take for you to pull it all together?
Sure. So it took I'd say about a year of knowing I was working on this particular project and working towards it. And I think at first I started with a lot written about the other characters, so nothing about the narrator at all. But I was really getting to know the scenes, the settings, the other characters, figuring out who was a part of this story, who wasn't a part of this story, what event was it all kind of happening around. And then the Garzan party sort of came out as the key event that everything was building up to. And once I understood who they were, and I wrote a lot kind of in the close third person, just following the characters around, getting to know them, understanding how they move through the world, then at that point, I tried to figure out who the narrator was, and I wanted her to be the person who fit in the space that all those other characters left behind. And so she really was, bending herself to kind of accommodate all these different people. And she was the result of who would fit into a situation like that. And just in terms of the nuts and bolts of it, I typically write in the morning, about 5 or 6 in the morning for an hour, aim for 100 to 200 words a day during the week. And then on the weekend, I'll spend like a good few hour long sessions going through the past week's stuff, rewriting, making plans for the next week, and doing sort of the bigger level structural edits and thinking about the overall plan as well.
Okay, awesome. So we have a reader question here. Julie on Instagram at username Books and Kettlebells would like to know yes, what's your favorite snack and beverage when writing?
Black coffee, absolute favorite. No snack. If I have a snack, my fingers won't be typing.
That's a good one. I'm curious though, Natasha. I mean, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but tell us about your publishing experience. I mean, was it what you expected? Were there any surprises, I guess? What was your experience like?
It's still underway and it's been like super interesting and positive. I think the biggest surprise was I was expecting it to be sort of 2 years from signing the deal to the book being published, because that's what I'd heard was typical. But when I brought the book, they wanted to publish it. I think they took it in October and we published in June in the UK and then September in the US. So it was just a lot faster than I was expecting everything to move. So everything changed a lot faster than I was expecting it to. So I think that was the biggest surprise. But it's been really sort of interesting to really understand that how the sausage is made, I guess, of books, because for me as a reader, I see these shiny things on the shelf, but to really understand everything that goes into it, how all of that works, has been kind of eye-opening. And I think, it's interesting because it's a totally different world and a totally different way of approaching projects to what I'm used to. But it's been so nice to be able to work with my agent, Emma Patterson, who's just been amazing and so supportive throughout this journey. And my editors, Hermione and Jean, have just been really great and supportive of the books. I've loved that. I think the kind of publicity side of things has been really odd and I think really interesting. And I'm glad I got to see all of this, because I've never experienced sort of talking to journalists before or anything like that and seeing this representation of yourself. And I think it's been interesting to find out, I really enjoy kind of podcast type of conversations or, either in person or Zoom conversations. I don't love newspaper interviews so much just because it never really feels like I came across in those.
That makes sense. I totally get it. I'm also happy you did my podcast, so yay.
Oh, I'm very happy to be invited on. Thank you.
I've been having so much fun. I also have another reader question. So Kirsty, username on Instagram is BBY.mommy. She would like to know, what are you working on next?
Sure. So I'm working on, for a while, I wasn't calling it a novel. I didn't feel it had reached that tipping point where I'm comfortable it's a novel, but I'll call it a novel for the first time. It's set mostly on a farm during lockdown, so it's quite different.
So we're moving from the city, I guess, to farm life.
Proper farm life. Well,
Farm life.
not a very, the characters don't really know how to farm.
Okay.
They're on a farm.
New experiences, both for us, the reader, and the farmers.
And me, the writer.
Have you ever been to a farm?
I have. I've been to the city farm in London where they teach children where milk comes from. And I've also visited a couple of real farms.
Awesome, awesome. So if you could tell your younger writing self anything, Natasha, I mean, here you are now, book published, working on another novel. What would you tell yourself?
It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know that I've fully processed the experience yet, if you know what I mean, that I'd have anything useful to tell her other than keep writing.
I think that's what I tell her, is keep writing and giving us, stories, again, like Assembly, where we can see folks that apparently, some people are not accustomed to seeing. So even the farm life. See, I'm here for farm life. Some folks don't see that. So I'm here for that too. But yeah, I would tell you to keep writing because I love your work. So
well, thank you. I'll pass that on.
It's coming from good authority. All right. So, Natasha, even though we're here to talk about Assembly, we want to know about your reading life. So share some books with us that you finished reading recently that you'd now recommend.
Yep. So I literally just finished Magpie by Elizabeth Day, which was great. I loved the party from her. Magpie. The ending, I'm not going to give anything away, but I just absolutely adored the ending. And I think she writes this sort of class of wealthy British sort of old money type of families just painfully well. So I'd highly recommend that. There's also, I read a little while ago, but I keep giving copies as gifts, Open Water by Caleb Zuma Nelson. If you haven't been to London, it really gives you such a beautiful portrait of London. If you have been, it's very, particularly in lockdown, not going out, it was lovely to see such a vivid portrait of London. And at the heart of it is this beautiful love story, and also this exploration of what it means to be Black and how something like love can be hard when you're sort of moving through the world as a Black man. And at the moment I'm reading My Body Keeps Your Secrets by Lucia Osborne Crawley, and I'm loving that. It's non-fiction and kind of essays about, I guess, the body and sort of how trauma is understood. And I'm just going through that now, really enjoying it.
Awesome. Okay, and what books are you looking forward to reading in the year ahead?
In the year ahead... as in coming up. I'm very bad at knowing this.
It's okay. They don't have to be new books. They could be old books too. Just any books you're looking forward to reading.
What's on my TBR pile? Oh, Wild Pets. So I think this is up next for me. And it's by Amber Medland. It's got the best cover. It's like a woman made out of salt. If you can imagine that. But I think this is a bit of a sort of irreverent, funny kind of relationship story. And that's what I'm going to be sinking my teeth into next.
Okay. So we're also big supporters of local bookstores here, and we ask all our guests on the show. So, of course, I'm going to ask you to share with our listeners some of your favorite indie bookstores.
Sure. So if you are in London, one that I've been absolutely loving, particularly during lockdown, well, I've only known it during lockdown, is Book Bar. And it is what it sounds like. It's a bookshop with a wine bar attached. It's got outdoor seating. You can have a glass of wine. The owner, Chrissy, she just has this amazing selection of books in there. You can just reach around and anything you touch will be a great read. And it's just sort of the perfect lockdown type of situation, when bookshops were shut for a really long time, getting them open again and having them as a social space too. I've really loved that. And in a similar vein, there's Crofton Books. And I did a reading there, and they do a lot of kind of readings there. So these outdoor readings and signings with authors. And it's just got this amazing community feel. They do secondhand books, so you never really know what you're going to find, as well as a small selection of new books, and you can order anything in. And again, it just feels like one of these things that has really evolved out of lockdown and is just such a nice place to visit. So I'll name those two.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so getting back to Assembly now and kind of wrapping things together. I mean, your book's been out there in the UK for a few months now. It's debuted here in the US. So I know you've been seeing reviews, both from the professional folks as well as just everyday readers like myself. I know you've done your job as an author. You've written the book, now it's up to us as readers. But, hypothetically speaking, I guess I'd say, what are the reactions you're hoping for, or just some thoughts you're hoping readers might have after they've turned the last page on Assembly?
Well, I think the main thing is I hope the ending satisfies, because as you mentioned, I feel I took some risks with how it's structured and how it ends. And my intent is never to sort of frustrate anybody or make them feel that their time's wasted. So my main feeling is that people come away from it with a feeling of satisfaction and like this was a good way to spend the couple of hours, hopefully, they spent with the book. But beyond that, I think I've just been really open to, one thing I thought about a lot when I was writing it was I wanted it to feel like one half of a conversation. So the book's there, and then hopefully it sort of fills out into something else in the reader's mind. And so if people find, that value in it and something to engage with, I just think I can't hope for more than that as a writer, really.
Absolutely. Well, I had thoughts about that ending. I was second guessing, should I discuss it? Should I not? I think not. I'm going to leave it to the reader. I had thoughts. I'm like, is it a yes? Is it a no? That's as far as I'm going to go. Right. Was it a yes? Was it a no? And the truth is, I walked away. My initial gut reaction, so I have to be honest, my initial gut reaction was it was a no. That's all I must say. That was my gut reaction the first time I read the book. Then I read the book again. And then I was like, maybe it's a yes. I don't get frustrated with books like these. I actually was discussing it with my husband, and I don't get frustrated. I never do. It's one of those books, they leave it up to you. I think that's what you did. You left it to us, the reader. But I don't get frustrated like that. Instead, I toy around with it. I'm like, I wonder if she did this, then, what's he going to think when he finds out that, And I just start going, trust me, I go down rabbit holes so deep, Natasha. Lord, so deep.
I love that response. I think I have thoughts is the best response.
So I have thoughts. Okay, but let's leave the readers with a shorter version of things. If you could describe Assembly in 3 words, what would it be?
Ooh. Short, sharp, champagne.
Ooh, I like that. Because I was like, yes, it's short, it's sharp. Champagne celebratory. So I'm here to celebrate with you. Natasha, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me on. This is so much fun.
Yay! Readers, I had so much fun with author Natasha Brown, and I really want to take this opportunity to thank her again for coming and lounging on the couch with us. This week is another great publication week for books. There are tons of books gracing bookshelves on Tuesday, October 18th, but today I'm sharing 14 new and noteworthy titles for you to keep on your radar. If you're looking for some non-fiction books, I highly recommend Orwell's Roses by Rebecca Solnit. If you're a Bravo TV Housewives fans, you definitely need to get your hands on a copy of Not All Diamonds and Rosé by Dave Quinn. And also available this week is Social Justice Parenting by Dr. Tracy Baxley. If you're shopping for a new cookbook, there's Zoe's Ghana Kitchen by Zoe Ajonyo and Black Food, edited by Bryant Terry. For our historical fiction readers, new this week is The Last Checkmate by Gabriella Saab. For readers looking for novels with themes of family and friendship, I highly recommend The Days of Aphrodite by Asali Solomon. Also out this week that I also recommend is O. William by Elizabeth Strout. For romance readers, there's Well Matched by Jen DeLuca and A Season for Second Chances by Jenny Bayliss. For our mystery readers, the third installment in the Hawthorne and Horowitz book series is A Line to Kill by Anthony Horowitz. For horror readers, Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Cow. For dystopian fans, there's Femlandia by Christina Dalcher. And for fantasy readers, Flowers for the Sea by Zin E. Rocklin. You can find a list with all these books and their summaries along with the show notes over at thereaderscouch.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Reader's Couch. You can find out more about the show and submit your questions for our guest by visiting our website, thereaderscouch.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Couch Is Booked. If you like the show, please subscribe, share, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Next week, I'll be back with new guests, more books, and some fun games we can play. But until then, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.